Welcome to Outlaw Woodworking. Today we finalized the log trailer, and we get all the crane hooked up and get all the wiring done. There's a few more little things I'm going to do, like I ordered some wire loom material to cover up some of the wires, but otherwise she's done. And yeah, let me show you how I did it. The first thing I do is I need to make supports for the tongue of the trailer to hold the crane. This is the last part of the build, is mounting this crane, and it needs to have a lot of support. The first two pieces are 45-degree pieces that are going from the tongue back to the headache rack. You can see right here is how I'm going to lay this out. First up, grind them all and get them ready to weld. Once I get them all grinded, I then tack them on first, make sure they're in the right spot. I'm going to have to lay under this trailer, so I get my welding jacket on also, and then I fully weld these two pieces. Next up, I needed to cut cross supports. Actually, next up what I'm doing is I'm making the removable jack stands that are going to go on the side. What they're going to do is they're going to bolt on here but be removable. So basically I could, like an outrigger jack. So when I pull up to get the logs, I can just hook up these outrigger or these jack stands on each side of this headache rack, and that'll keep the trailer from twisting. So right there you can see I'm setting these little pieces up to fit over the 2-inch square tubing that's on the headache rack. And basically that's how it's going to look right there. And I had these old pieces of flat metal that I decided to use. They already had a handle on them, so I decided I was going to use those as the base of the jack stands. Right here you see I get them all grinded up, ready to weld, and I tack this first one on here. Once I get that piece cleaned off and fully welded, I then start making a 45-degree piece to strengthen it. That's the second side piece. I do the same thing. I clamp it where I want it, get the little base plate, grind it off. Those little bases turned out to be pretty good because they already have a handle on them, and then I can just grab them and lift them up and put them in the back of the TOOLCAT. So here's the jack number 2. Once I get them both fully welded, then I make this little bottom piece, and this is going to give it a lot more strength from bending up or breaking out the weld. Basically, I'm going to weld this piece right in there, and you can kind of see how that's going to look. Once I get them both fully welded, I then proceed to drill for the pins. I'm going to be using trailer hitch pins that are about 5/8 inch diameter, where I can just pull them in and out with cotter pins. And there's the second side all done. Now what I need to do is wipe all this stuff down and primer and paint it, keep it from rusting. And I just go through and get the whole trailer cleaned off and then proceed to primer it and paint it. I decided the first season I wasn't going to powder coat it just in case I had to put more supports or welding on it. And right here I'm using a self-etching primer that's sandable and paintable. I then use a gloss black paint. Next up I needed to cut this corrugated metal or metal wire mesh. It's kind of a thick gauge wire mesh that I'm going to weld on the back of the headache rack to keep anything from sliding through. And right here I'm using a plasma cutter, 220 volt, and I marked it with a felt pen, and then I just go through and cut. And right there you can see I'm just measuring it and marking it. Once I get it all marked, I start cutting it. Once I get everything cut, I then grind it all off, get it ready to weld to the front of this headache rack. Surprisingly, the paint was actually pretty tough to grind off, so that must have been pretty good paint. Once I get all the paint grinded off, it was then ready to weld the wire mesh to the headache rack. And right here you can see I kind of clamp it where I think it looks good, and then it's just a matter of welding this thing on. I start at the top and weld every little piece that's sticking out. A lot of little tacks. A lot of little welds hold on this little screen. And there it is, welded on. Next up, I clean it, and then I primer it and paint it. It takes a lot of paint to paint the wire mesh because most of it just goes through. Once the primer dries, I then paint it all black again. Next up, it was time to make supports for the crane. I now had the crane, so I needed to figure out exactly where these bolt holes were going to go. And I set the crane up there and kind of figure out where these are going to go and then weld them in place. You can see there's the jack, the crane base right there. It's pretty big. So right here I line these pieces up underneath the crane, tack them, and then fully weld them. Welding upside down is a bummer because you get a lot of sparks flying on you. That's why I'm wearing that nice welding jacket. Once I get both pieces fully welded, I then set the crane on top of there where it's going to go permanently. I then get it up there and drill it and bolt it. I'm using grade 8 bolts, 5/8 I believe. And there it is all bolted on. I went ahead and impacted these down. I then put a front, because I'm going to be pulling from the other side mostly, I then decided to add a little support here and put a cross support down to the tongue. Sorry about the lighting. Lighting's really bad. Right here I figure out the dimension. I then get it all grinded up, ready to weld on there. Right now I'm welding this thing solid on there, but I am going to cut it in half so that the crane will be removable. But for now I'm just going to weld it on there. And there's the piece right there. Once I get this piece welded on, the crane is basically done as far as mounting it on the trailer. That's the major supports for the crane. And there you can see the crane. Now this crane that I bought was a rug cell crane, and just to give you a heads up, I ordered it with the winch and the winch did not fit on it. I ended up having to, whatever winch they sent didn't have the right holes, and I ended up having to drill holes to mount it, but it still worked out fine. Right here I'm just, I made a headache rack for the back of my TOOLCAT so that when I throw firewood up into the back of the TOOLCAT, it didn't hit the window and break the window. Those windows on the TOOLCAT are real expensive. Right here I clean it, primer it, paint it again. Next up I finish up the wiring, and I'm using some, what do you call these connectors? Let's see. Right here I'm hooking up the electrical, and I'm using some 6-gauge quick connect harness plugs, and I'm crimping them and soldering them. I ordered some really nice wire loom for all this wire, so I'm waiting for it to come in. I haven't put that on yet. Right here I finished wiring up the winch. It's kind of a neat little winch. It's small, but it came with 2 remote controls, which so far has been pretty nice. And right here I'm hard wiring to the battery, and that'll get a wire loom also. I put a little I put some on there right where it makes that bend. I'm throwing away all my zip ties. I ordered new zip ties. These zip ties, for some reason, and they're UV rated, these black ones, every one of them just breaks as soon as you pull on it. So thanks for watching this episode of Outlaw Woodworking. I hope you enjoyed the log trailer build. Tomorrow we'll actually go out and in the next episode, we'll go out and try to lift up some logs. And hopefully it works. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe, like the video, and I'll see you next time. Later.